Hello and welcome to a special mini episode of the Internet of Things Made Simple. This is mini episode number 8, and I thank you for joining us. As always, shout out to our new listeners. There's a ton in January. Welcome aboard. Check out our webpage, theinternetofThingsmadesimple.com, and kindly subscribe to this podcast using your favorite podcast service. As I've often mentioned, mini episodes are ones that kind of got caught in the middle. They're too long to cover in a 3 to 5 minute open segment, but not long enough to justify a 15 to 20 minute main segment. But they're usually too important to pass on, and this is one that definitely falls into that category. The topic today is about automation, and based on the conversations at the World Economic Forum that were overheard, it's not in your head. Your boss wants to replace you with a robot, and much sooner than later. I like to give credit where credit is due. This podcast is based on a New York Times article by Kevin Roost. Mr. Roost revealed that during his conversations with executives about automation, the answers tended to differ based on who may be listening. In public, talk about automation is all about how it's a troubling topic for executives. They're being kept up at night by the prospect of replacing their workers. They can't believe they have to consider it. There's also a lot of talk in public about the increased safety nets that are going to be required, including the concept of a guaranteed wage and retraining programs that they might spend money on, and they definitely want the government to spend money on. However, in private, they tell a much different story. They're moving towards automation with the same kind of speed that my kids come running downstairs to see what Santa Claus has brought them. Billions of dollars, with many more to be invested, have been spent on things that reduce worker headcounts. And let's be clear here, the goal is not to take away a few workers. If a company employs 10,000 workers, they don't want to take out a few hundred. They just want to leave a few. Again, you'll never hear this said in public. A few things we want to talk about today about this is 1, who benefits from this? Well, the obvious list would be some technology firms, and companies like IBM and Infosys have reported huge gains in this part of their company, and I'm sure there are many others. Ironically, though, it doesn't benefit all technology companies. Look at a company like Dell or Apple or even the cell phone carriers. They rely on companies, in this case, buying a lot of smartphones, tablets, and laptops. If you're cutting a bunch of workers, you don't need as many of those. The second area we want to look at is manufacturers, retailers, governments, and finance. They all seem on the surface like they would heavily benefit from AI, as it could reduce a lot of their cost. But are there going to be enough people to buy their products in the case of companies, or in the case of governments, if enough people are cut, is there going to be enough of a tax base to pay for vital services? A funny thing about this is a difference in culture. Many countries around the world have executives that openly brag about automation, and that includes some Chinese companies, who have stated that their goal is to go 100% automated and not down the road. They want to do it now. This makes it harder for North American and European companies to compete. If an Asian company is that brazen about automation, how do you compete? How do you offer different severance packages and retraining for your staff who might be let go by automation when they're not going to? The next area you might wonder is, why? Why are we doing this? Aren't companies making billions of dollars already? Why this rush towards automation? They're worried about their competitors doing it first. So imagine you have a taxi company, and your competitor has just announced they're going to remove 40 to 60% of their cost by eliminating taxi drivers. They're going towards self-driving cars. How do you compete? Sure, you can find some cost savings here and there, but you're not going to take out 40 to 60% unless you also go to self-driving cars. The other thing is there's often little downside, which is kind of sad in terms of productivity and performance. Many of the jobs that have been replaced so far by automation have been kind of hidden away, like in the back office or the finance department or in accounting. There's been little or no drop to customer service that people have noticed, so companies are pushing ahead. The last area we want to talk about is shareholders are demanding long-term growth. And you might say, rich guys, stop making all these cuts to make your performance and your portfolio that much better. But keep in mind, it isn't only rich guys who are doing this. A lot of people have their pensions invested in stock. A lot of government funds, like for instance, old age security in the US have stock portfolios, so that they're just as demanding as the rich guys. So you are benefiting from it. Another part is that shareholders are demanding long-term growth. And for some of these mature companies, it's just not that easy to find. It's a lot easier to cut. So take a company like an American Express. If they wanted to cut 10, 20, 60, 80% of the cost of a department without affecting customer service, which they're known for, the only way they could possibly do it is automation. So where does that leave us as a society? A few things we can do. We're going to start with putting pressure on the government to force companies for paying up for automation. It might be in the form of a robot tax when they pay a tax up front for eliminating a job. It could also be in the form of income tax. So yes, you would put an income to that robot, and the company would be responsible for paying income tax in this case. It could also be to pressure the companies to pay for retraining, and companies like Amazon and Accenture have done this for a number of employees, so they've shown that it can work. The next thing we have to do as a society is accept there's going to be short-term pain. There always has been on revolutionary ideas. When the steam engine came out and different forms of transportation, it eliminated millions of farm jobs, and we survived. When the internet came out, it eliminated the need for bank tellers in many cases and travel agents, and we survived. And we will survive in the future. And how we're going to survive is the third point. We need to change the education system. Yes, I've spoken about this to death and written about it. I don't want to go into it anymore, but let me just say that we need to stop training for the jobs that aren't going to be there and start focusing our education system on skills and roles that will be there. Finally, I'm surprised this hasn't become much more of a political issue. Maybe it's just too much of a landmine, I'm not really sure, but it's something that has the potential to affect more workers than any other topic, maybe except for climate change, but you rarely see it coming up in election debates. In the US, neither side has taken this up as an issue, and I don't care if you're a left-winger or a right-winger, I just care that you listen to my podcast, but I'm just wondering, why haven't people spoken about it more? We need to make it more of an issue. We need to make an issue in all countries as well. We can't just have a few countries in the world fight against automation and then other countries just steamroll right through it. We need to stop ignoring this trend. It's not going away because your job might be next, and then maybe you'll pay attention. Many thanks for listening to this mini episode. I used to talk about the back catalog at this time of the show, but in this case, I want to talk about some episodes that are coming up in a little bit. The first is a guide to buying a gateway, an IoT gateway, in 2019, in which we're going to cover 10 features that you need to know about, why they're important, and should they be a factor in your decision. The next one is the power of sensors at home and at work. The next one is why you need to move away from 2G and 3G now, and some guidelines to help you do so. Thanks again for listening. Talk soon. I'm Larry Boy Humor.